Hey everyone, just jumping on here quickly to do a little bit of clarification for the episode you're about to hear. This is a quick little solo episode where I drop into Alexis Bellino and explore some of what might be going on with her on this season of The Real Housewives of Orange County. And I just wanted to give you guys the heads up that I actually recorded this episode last week. I recorded it last Thursday, August 8th, before the last episode of The Real Housewives of Orange County dropped. Last episode meaning the episode where all the women gather for dinner and Vicky is there and Alexis is pulling out the receipts of the canceled checks from the money that John left Shannon, and Tamra's going in on Shannon being an alcoholic. So that was the episode that aired last week, evening of Thursday, August 8th. Now, the reason why I'm clarifying this is because, as you will soon hear, a lot of what I explored in this episode actually ended up getting confirmed in last week's August 8th episode. So I just didn't want people listening to this feeling confused and asking themselves, why is he acting like this is intuitive information when we've seen this play out on the show? Like I said, I recorded this and then literally that night, an episode came out that confirmed a lot of the information. I think, as most of you know, I always record these episodes at least a week ahead of time to give me time and space to edit them. So I'm always a little bit behind the curve in terms of keeping up with what's currently on air. I do my best to try and remember to note on the podcast episode the date I'm recording it so it's clear for people, but I don't always remember to do so. So like I said, this was recorded last week, before last week's episode, and as you will see, a lot of what played out really sort of confirmed what you're about to listen to, including even like actual specific language in terms of how Alexis very specifically experiences and sees Shannon Beador. So hopefully it will be fun for you to kind of track that as you're listening to this and to see how it lines up with last week's episode. And who knows, maybe even tonight's episode, because we've got another episode dropping tonight, Thursday night, August the 15th. But having said all that, like I said, recorded this last week, recorded this before the August 8th episode. So that's where this falls on the timeline of the show. Hi, and welcome to Deep Dive with Jamie Stein, where we take a deep dive look at all things reality TV, pop culture, and the world at large. I'm an intuitive and an empath, which means I pick up on the thoughts, feelings, and energy percolating in other people and the world around me. I believe there is meaning waiting to be found at every turn if you're willing to see it. So join me as we dismantle everything from trash TV to high spiritual concepts and learn more about ourselves, each other, and how we're all connected. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Deep Dive with Jamie Stein. Today's going to be a quick solo episode. My schedule has been really in flux lately. I've been flying a little bit by the seat of my pants in terms of work flow and schedule. And here I am. This is the day I would usually record. I don't have anything officially scheduled. So I thought this might be kind of an interesting opportunity to just do a little intuitive exploration into The Real Housewives of Orange County. It feels like the most alive show in the Bravo-verse right now, and I definitely plan to explore it more deeply with some really interesting guests. But yeah, thought I could open that doorway now and sort of see what wants to be uncovered. But before I do, just a quick logistical item in the spirit and vein of scheduling and forthcoming episodes. I do want you guys to know that I've heard you loud and clear. I know there's a lot of interest in my forthcoming episode about She Who Shall Not Be Named. And just know that is definitely coming. A lot of you have been asking about it. It is 100% for sure coming. It is more or less a scheduling issue. I've got to get I'm seeing if I can get my original guest scheduled to come back and complete it. This is someone who is particularly busy right now. And if it's looking like it is going to be too difficult for us to really sit down again and complete it, then I'm going to get another guest or two to hop on board and finish it out with me. So, like I said, know that it's coming. I've got a list. In my quote unquote office in my work area of definitive podcast episode ideas, that those are the podcast episodes I know that I'm going to do and I'm committed to doing. And this episode is on that list. So it is coming. I just don't know when. So be patient. And as with all things, I always trust the exact right timing will occur. So be on the lookout for that when it's ready to finally materialize into existence. Okay. Having said that, yeah, I thought we'd dive a little bit into Orange County. And honestly, I am most initially drawn, of course, to the evolving relationship between Alexis Bellino and Shannon Beador. I mean, there's so much here. They both definitely came in very hot this season with regards to one another, perhaps unsurprisingly. But yeah, as a lot of people have noticed, Alexis is definitely holding up her end of the hot equation. One could say Shannon is doing her best to really take the high road and to minimize drama and to avoid drama, whereas Alexis seems a little bit more eager to dive into the fray and to stir some shit up. It feels like she's got a little bit more to prove. And so I thought it just might be interesting to drop into Alexis towards Shannon Beador and just see what might be going on for her on a deeper level. What are the unconscious motives or even semi-conscious motives that are compelling her to wield such a heavy hand in coming back to the show? So having said that, yeah, I'm just going to keep this really simple, really direct and easy. I'm just going to drop into Alexis Bellino towards Shannon Beador and just see what wants to come forward. Okay, guys, here I go. So this is Alexis Bellino towards Shannon Beador. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's just kind of immediate contempt. Ugh. I don't even want to, I don't even want to look in that direction. I don't even want to take her in all the way. There's just kind of like a flavor of contempt, and I almost want to say like disgust here. I mean, the initial hit is, as I'm taking Shannon in, is she sort of just seems like this sorry sack, negative, kind of miserable, and I don't even want to look. I don't even want to take her in. If you guys could see me at home, I'm kind of like, my hand is going up in that talk to the hand position, and I'm kind of making a grimace with my face, and my head's looking in the other direction. I always sort of call this the Valerie Cherish, I don't want to see that pose. I don't even want to look in that direction. I don't even want to take it in. You're beneath me. This is beneath me. Ugh. So, okay. So that's kind of, it feels like there's an initial layer of, what I could call contempt, disdain, disgust. You're beneath me. I don't even want to give you the time of day. But let me stay with this a little bit more. I'm going to kind of coax Alexis to stay with this energy and to really take Shannon in. Yeah, I mean, as I take Shannon in, there's definitely some anger that rises up here. Yeah, I just keep hearing the words, you're the problem. You're the problem. You're the problem. You're the fucking problem. And I want to take something out on you. You're the fucking problem. And I want the world to know that you're the fucking problem. And as Alexis, as I say this, I feel very deeply invested in this idea and in this narrative that Shannon, you're the fucking problem. Like, you're the issue. You're the problem. It's you. It's you. It's you. It's you. And so I have to imagine, as I say this, that this is obviously in relationship to John Jansen, Johnny J. He's not the problem. You're the problem. And I want the whole world to know you're the problem. Yeah, again, I'm sort of taking her in, and she does look like this sad sack. And it's really kind of like, I've got something to prove here. Again, the world needs to know that you're the fucking problem. You're the sad, miserable sack who's ruining everything. Yeah, I've got something to prove. The world needs to know. I've got something to prove. The world needs to know. I've got something to prove. The world needs to know. You're the fucking problem. It's you. It's you. It's you. It's you, and the whole fucking world needs to know it. Stop messing with my man. So, okay. So if I kind of stay with this as Jamie, I think this is sort of hitting me on a few different levels. So as I'm sure you just probably heard, like I said, there's a driving energy in Alexis to see sad, sack, miserable, negative Shannon as the problem, and for the world to know, and for her to stop messing with my man. This is sort of where I go with this. There's kind of a few things that sort of immediately come to me. What I'm first and foremost aware of is that, yes, Alexis is in this new relationship that's really exciting for her. And I think that we really can't minimize the personal context from which Alexis is approaching this relationship. I don't know if it's been mentioned on the show or not, but I just know from, reading interviews and podcasts and whatnot, Alexis Bellino has actually had a very difficult year prior to falling in love with Johnny J. She was engaged to another man. So obviously she was like ready for this lifelong partnership with, I believe this was her first serious boyfriend after divorcing Jim. And then I believe her mother died, whom she was very close to. Her mother died. And from what I understand in the wake, so that in and of itself, right, that's going to be kind of a crushing blow to her this past year. Then my understanding is in the wake of her mother's death, this fiance really wasn't there for her emotionally in the way that she was needing, wanting, and perhaps expected. And so she then made the really difficult decision to end that relationship with him. So that's another blow. In one fell swoop, she's lost her mother. She's lost her fiance, who, again, I believe is her first serious boyfriend coming out of her divorce with Jim. So, she's been in a very vulnerable place. And I say that because I am so aware, as we all are, that this new relationship between Alexis and John Jansen, they got hot and heavy really quickly. I actually didn't even realize how short the time frame was. I guess because now we're watching things in retrospect. So they've been together longer now. But at the time of filming, I guess they were only together for 2 months. And we all see how fast it's moving. He's already buying her a promise ring. She's talking about it being the love of her life. She knows she's going to marry him. There's a way in which she clearly has been swept away by this. Like I said, in a very sort of hot and heavy, very fast manner. And I can't help but wonder, hypothesize, speculate, perhaps intuit if for Alexis, and this is kind of what I was feeling actually, even before we saw the show, when they first got together, and I kind of extended my little intuitive radar out just to see if I could get any kind of hits based off of no information. And I will say this is what I felt at the time, and it's what I'm still possibly feeling now, which is that, yeah, Alexis, I think like a lot of us, especially when we're in times of pain, I think she wanted her happy ending. I think she wants her happy ending. I think that her life started to feel really adrift and unmoored in a lot of ways. And I can imagine for her that meeting this guy where there's a connection, and a love spark, it could very easily be translated as, okay, this is the dawn on the other side of the darkness. This is the happy ending that all the pain and strife was leading me to. Like, this makes sense of everything that I've gone through. And it's funny because as I'm saying this, what's coming to me intuitively, I know that Alexis, obviously, she has a pretty strong relationship to whatever her version of Christianity is. And I'm almost wondering about the possibility of like faith in God and feeling like this was sent to me by God. This was sent to me by the universe. As I'm saying this now, I'm remembering she did talk on Two Teas in a Pod. I guess she got like a psychic reading or something. And the psychic told, because she was debating whether or not to go back to the show, Real Housewives of Orange County. And I guess the psychic told her that her departed mother had actually organized this opportunity to come back into her life, and that, yes, she's supposed to say yes to the show. So I just bring that in because, again, I kind of got this hit for Alexis of like, the angels sent me Johnny J. Like, again, this is my happy ending and I'm deeply invested in it. And if I'm right about this, it definitely feels compulsive. It feels like there's a tight grip clinging to it. It feels like there's a voice in Alexis saying, I want this to work out. I want this to work out. And if I kind of deepen that further, it's not just I want this relationship to work out, but it's like I want life to work out. I want life to work out. I want life to work out. It's almost like it almost like prevents her from maybe having to feel those deeper feelings that she would have to keep feeling if this romance weren't here to sort of distract her from just, again, these series of devastating blows this past year. So I'm just saying all this because I do feel in her something that really wants this to work out and really wants to believe that this is the fairy tale happy ending that she finally, this is the words I'm hearing, finally deserves after all this strife and suffering. And again, I'm kind of feeling the bigger picture here. That's why I mentioned her fiance perhaps being her first serious boyfriend after Jim Bellino, because I'm feeling the divorce from Jim here too. And as I say that, I'm feeling like the possible sense of failure in her in the wake of that divorce, the possible sense of embarrassment in her in the wake of that divorce. Remember, from her first stint, Alexis, here's the thing, I think a lot of times people really want to underestimate Alexis because she can have those malapropisms. She's maybe not what we would call the most book smart person in the world. She can be sort of very pretentious at times and goofy. So there's a way in which we can underestimate her. But I think it's important to remember she's actually she's very headstrong and she's very stubborn. She fights back. She plays to win. She has a lot of pride. And even back when she was on the show the first time and people were coming for her marriage, she stood behind it. She defended it and she defended Jim. And there was a part of Alexis that just, you weren't going to knock her off the pedestal that she had created for herself. You weren't going to tear down the curtain to expose the humble human behind the great, magnificent Oz. She stood behind and by that relationship. And I just say all this, again, just to really bring in that this is a woman who, at least historically, has a real relationship to pride and to, a real sort of force of will. And so I'm saying that because, again, I have to imagine to finally kind of surrender in a way and divorce Jim and walk away from the marriage. I'm just feeling that really might have been, again, another sort of devastating blow to her. If she was putting a lot of stock and value and meaning in this marriage working, and then that gets taken from her, I can imagine her feeling like it's a failure on some level. I can imagine her feeling embarrassed on some level. And then, like I said, here she is. Her next fiance is gone. Her mom's gone, perhaps feeling adrift. And now here's Johnny J. And I think this is just context for this possibility of finally I get my happy ending. Finally, this is going to make sense of everything. Finally, life can settle down and I want the world to know. So, having said that, like I said, I kind of feel this sort of compulsive desire for it to all be working out and for the angels to have sent her this miracle. And so, they're moving fast and furious. And I can imagine for Alexis, I see this almost playing out in two ways. There's sort of the private way and the public way. Look, you guys, I have to imagine there are some red flags that have been popping up when it comes to John Jansen. So, again, I'm not privy to their private life, but just even what we've heard third hand on the show, right? It's like even just, again, what we've heard on the show, John Jansen bringing Alexis to this gym that was Shannon's unofficial territory. I think we all know there's something really passive aggressive about that. I am sure, as Shannon said, I'm sure there are plenty of gyms John Jansen could have gone to. Did he need to go to, even if Shannon hadn't been there for a few months, did he need to go to that gym? It feels like there's sort of a fuck you there, right? And apparently when the trainer mentioned that Shannon had just been there, and then I guess the trainer didn't want any drama. And then on the show, Alexis mentioned that she had said, I'm a good Christian girl, ha ha ha, I'm not going to cause drama. And then I guess because of that, the trainer responded, well, Shannon did mention that you were, boasting about your guys' robust sex life, and is that what a good Christian girl does? And which, I want to say that's pretty ballsy of the trainer to say. But I also want to say, too, I mean, it is true that Alexis was boasting about their robust sex life. And again, that's kind of an interesting choice to make, given that it's just an interesting choice to make in general. You know, Larsa Pippen got a lot of flack for that. It feels a little showy. But then especially when you're doing it in front of the ex-girlfriend who's sitting right there, right? I mean, Alexis made a choice. So this is all just to say that certainly Alexis and John are not blameless in this particular situation. And yet I don't know, I forget who talked about this on camera. Maybe it was Shannon who mentioned this. But I guess in response to that, John Jansen started screaming at the trainer. Oh, and this is so interesting. And he was screaming, oh, this is all Shannon, and Shannon put you up to this, and it's Shannon's fault, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And he's like yelling at the trainer. So I originally was mentioning this just because, like, you know, this for me, if I were dating someone and suddenly they're yelling at a personal trainer and screaming about Shannon or their ex, that is something I might consider a red flag, right? It's not exactly what we would call appropriate behavior. And so I have to imagine there's a lot of these instances happening where someone who is perhaps a little bit more cautious or a little bit more willing to really sort of check in with themselves might be clocking it and might be saying to themselves, you know, this might be cause for concern. This might be telling me something about who this guy is in relationship. But if I want it to work out and I want to believe in the fast and furious fantasy of this relationship, well, then I'm going to try to find a way to justify this in my head. Now, if we bring in the fact that, again, even in that moment we heard about third hand, John Jansen was blaming Shannon and literally saying, this is Shannon's fault. Shannon did this. Shannon did that. Well, that is a clue to me as Jamie that he's probably saying a lot of shit about Shannon. And he's probably saying a lot of stuff is Shannon's fault and that Shannon's to blame for everything. And again, we've kind of heard rumblings of this. I don't remember where I first heard this, but I think John was interviewed recently somewhere. And, you know, he made this cutting comment about, well, you try being a boyfriend to Shannon and, you know, handling all of Shannon's drama. It feels clear that he's really cultivating a narrative that the troubles in their relationship and the source of his agitation was all Shannon all the time. So if I'm Alexis and I really want this relationship to work out and I'm seeing some red flags, but I want to find a way to dismiss those red flags. And then I've got a boyfriend who's conveniently creating a narrative of, oh, this is all Shannon's fault. I can imagine why I would then deeply, desperately want to believe him. Oh, yes, this is all Shannon's fault. Shannon's the drama queen. Shannon's the negative Nancy. Shannon's the sad sack. Shannon was the drain on my precious Johnny J. And any behavior that's sort of off, weird, temperamental, or aggressive right now, it's not his fault. It's Shannon's fault. It's your fault, Shannon. And I need to believe that on some level to continue believing in the myth of this relationship, which to me on a personal level represents my happy ending that I finally earned and that I finally deserved. Now, having said that, I think there's kind of an additional level to this too, right? Which is public perception. So, and I want to be clear, Alexis is clearly very, 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 very keyed into public perception because she actually started to post videos on Instagram of her and John having cookie crazy times as a loving couple, but she very pointedly and decidedly turned her comments off. So, I mean, look, it's no surprise. I think anyone who's a public figure is going to be tapped into what people are saying about them, but clearly Alexis cares because she's picking up what people are saying in the comments and she's having a reaction and she's protecting herself by turning the comments off. Mind you, still posting content because, you know, that would be the other solution, which is maybe lay off posting content of you and John for a little bit. But again, clearly she has something to prove. She wants the world to see the happy ending, and she's clearly very sensitive to the world's perception. So the reason I'm saying all this, to me, this is almost like another level of red flags. Like everyone, from the moment they started getting together, everyone had an opinion about it. Everyone was talking about it. People started accusing him of being a serial housewife dater, being in it for the wrong reasons. You know, people were sort of nitpicking them apart, questioning his character, right? And so I have to imagine on a certain level, like this information's coming in to Alexis. And again, there's something here. Yeah, this is playing out on two different levels for me. There's something here about wanting to prove the world wrong, because again, I don't want to take in these red flags. I don't want to take in the red flags that the world is bringing to me. So I want to prove the world wrong. I want the world to see it's actually Shannon's fault. So it's like the voice in her is like, guys, no, you got it wrong. This isn't actually about John Jansen. It's fucking Shannon. Shannon's the problem. And you all are going to see how Shannon's the problem. And then you're going to realize you were wrong about John Jansen, which means you were wrong about our relationship, which means I get my happy ending after all. Now, the other way I also feel this playing out too is if John Jansen is making Shannon the villain and blaming Shannon for everything, right? I also see Alexis's desire to kind of expose or out Shannon as the problem on the TV show as kind of, I don't know, being a dutiful soldier to John, you know, proving her worth as, you know, his lover, his girlfriend, his faux fiance. It's like, I'm going to make my man happy. I'm going to make my man proud. I'm going to show my man, just how worthy I am in relationship. So, it kind of feels to me like this is sort of playing out on three levels. And it's all about maintaining her tight grip on the possible illusion of this happy ending relationship. One, justifying or ignoring whatever red flags she might be experiencing just on a day-to-day personal level. Two, disproving the red flags from the public. And then three, sort of proving herself to John, being worthy of his love in this relationship. And again, being worthy of this happy ending. And it's interesting because it's almost like, and I feel like I always have to qualify, this is obviously based on unlimited information that I'm getting through the media and the TV screen. So I'm just intuitively, throwing some paint against the wall and seeing what shapes emerge. But I can't help but have this curiosity about whether Alexis might be clocking John's temperament when it comes to Shannon, be clocking his charged energy when it comes to Shannon, and is perhaps telling herself a story that this is only happening right now because he's fresh out of the relationship. The wounds are still raw. Shannon did him so dirty, and now he just has to sort of get through this initial phase of recovering from this brutal breakup that, of course, was all Shannon's fault. And then once he's through it, then he's going to calm down. Because the thing is, again, I really want to say, Alexis, even though I know she has this reputation for being quote unquote stupid, I've actually always experienced her. She's like, I don't think she's actually dumb. I really don't. There's always been a quickness to her. Again, look, when she gets into arguments, she fights back really quickly. Like she does have a way of clocking things. For example, she clocked Gretchen really turning on her in her final season, and the way in which Gretchen was really vying for Tamara's love and affection, and the way that played out in her friendship. It's like, I don't want to go so far as to say, she's like the most perceptive person in the world. But I always experience her as having her finger on the pulse of what's going on in a situation. Like she knows when people are getting digs in. She knows when people are insulting her, even if it's a backhanded compliment. And again, I just can't help but wonder, especially coming out of a relationship with Jim Bellino who steamrolled over her, then clearly drawing a boundary for herself with her last boyfriend / fiance. It's like Alexis has been on a journey of asserting herself more and more and advocating for herself more and more and having that right to advocate for herself. So I could really envision a scenario where on some level she is clocking the more unhinged parts of John Jansen, where she is perhaps clocking, like I said, sort of a deeply charged investment in tearing Shannon down. On some level, perhaps clocking like this isn't actually a good sign, bigger picture. Because, the truth of it is, guys, how do I say this? Our approach to one thing is our approach to everything. We reveal ourselves constantly. And the fact of the matter is, if John Jansen really is playing the blame game with Shannon, if he really does have sort of a charged energy that feels really invested in blaming her and tearing her down, the fact is that isn't just going to begin and end with Shannon. At some point, that is a pattern in John Jansen's life, and he's ultimately going to bring it to other relationships in his life. And I guess I'm just kind of saying this as a general teaching and a general learning, because I feel like so often people do fall prey to this notion, this idea, this fantasy that I can clock someone's behavior towards other people, but they're not doing it to me. So they're never going to do it to me. And that behavior is situational towards that other person. And I just want to say, you guys, that ain't how it works. Who we are is who we are. And it's why principle matters so much. And you can really tell a lot about a person by the principles they live by. So what that means is, even if I dislike someone, I am still not going to be someone who seeks to tear them down. I'm not going to spread lies about them for the sake of tearing them down. I'm not going to completely vilify them and demonize them for the sake of vilifying and demonizing them, because it's not right to do to anyone. Regardless of whether I like you or I don't like you, it's the target or the person on the other end of my attention isn't what determines how I conduct myself as a human being. It's not what determines how I conduct myself in my behavior. My principles determine how I conduct myself as a human being, and my principles can determine how I conduct myself in terms of my behavior. It doesn't matter if I love you or if I hate you. My behavior needs to stay consistent. And I need to sort of approach all situations, from a consistent set of moral standards and ethics, really. So having said that, yes, if you are someone who perhaps clocks naughty behavior in friends or loved ones, and you kind of tell yourself they're never going to do it to me, they're never going to do it to me, I might take a second look at that. And we've seen this play out in the shows, like Brandi Glanville didn't think that Lisa Vanderpump was going to play chess with her. And conversely, Lisa Vanderpump didn't think Brandi Glanville was going to go nuclear with her in the way that she does. They thought that they were exempt from one another's bad, naughty behavior. The truth is, neither of them was exempt from each other's naughty behavior. So again, I kind of just feel like when it comes to people, what you see is what you get. And when you clock certain behavior, there's going to be a certain point in time where that behavior comes around towards you. And you really got to sit with whether you're actually okay with that or not. Because if you're not, it might be time to draw a boundary. Now, having said that, bringing this back to Alexis, yeah, I can imagine a scenario where she's clocking something. And she's clocking his charge investment in tearing Shannon down. And some part of her knows this is kind of a red flag. But again, if I can just believe this possible story, I tell myself that, Shannon was just so bad and nasty that it's wounded him. And he's just got to work through this. And then once he's worked through it, everything's going to be fine between us. That would be even more of a reason, again, to believe Shannon's the bad guy. Shannon's the bad guy. Shannon's the bad guy. This, honestly, as I say all this, it feels like this has so little to do with Shannon. It feels like it has so little to do with Shannon as a human being. And maybe that's part of why she's not even wanting to fully take her in or look at her like at the beginning of this drop-in, because it's almost like this has nothing to do with Shannon. Shannon is a placeholder for being the bad guy I need her to be in order to continue believing in my relationship with John. So for me, for Alexis, this isn't actually about Shannon. It's about my relationship with John and wanting to believe in it and wanting to believe in him and wanting the world to know that it's right to believe in him, ignoring all these red flags and clinging to the possibility of this happy ending. Because if this isn't actually my happy ending, oh, fuck. Then there's a whole world of emotion inside me and my internal life that I have to deal with. That's for another day. So, okay, I'm going to maybe just drop in one more time just to see if there's anything else here. Yeah, I think the last thing I'll say, it totally aligns with everything I've already explored. The anger is really deep. I actually feel really deep rage. And I think, yes, so I'm getting hits that like I said, this is confirming everything I felt. I don't actually think this is a rage towards Shannon. I think this is the deeper rage towards life. I think this is the deeper rage towards God. I think this is the deeper rage of, everything that she's lost, everything that she's gone through. Yeah, I'm just suddenly hearing the words, it's not fucking fair. Oh, I've tried and I've tried and I've tried, and I've compromised so much in myself for these different relationships. I'm just trying to fucking get it right. When do I get my fucking happy ending? And if Shannon has to be the fucking bad guy to make this work, then you're the fucking bad guy. Yeah, there's a ferocity and an intensity in Alexis that I've never felt before. So this is a much deeper conversation. If I were working with Alexis, I would definitely want to know more about this intensity in her. She's got a lot of life force in her, if I'm picking up on accurate energy. The last thing I'll say before I sign off is I am so drawn to the way that Alexis experiences Shannon as like this sad, miserable sack. Because it's like, as I take her in, I really see Shannon, like I said, just sort of this like, this sort of sad sack in the corner who's sort of dramatic and miserable and depressed and negative. And I don't know, there's something else there too, actually independent of the whole John situation, of like, almost like Shannon externalizing a vulnerability and almost like a sense of defeat that Alexis kind of never wants to know inside of herself. It's almost like a helplessness. Because again, like I said, Alexis has this sort of pride and this stubborn will. And, if the relationship with John isn't an indication, she's got a relationship to compulsive energy and going hard and fast and furious. And I can imagine there's maybe something in her that is really keeping any sort of more like defeated, seemingly helpless or powerless aspects of herself at an arm's length. Any place where she feels disempowered or, again, somehow defeated at an arm's length. And that, Shannon might really be externalizing something there for her as well, that she like wants to crush and push down in herself. So she then also wants to crush it and push it down in Shannon as well. All right, you guys. Like I said, quick little episode today. I'm kind of on the fly this week, but hopefully you enjoyed it. As always, I love hearing from you. So feel free to send me DMs, emails, messages. And as always, follow me on Instagram, Jamie Stein, JamieStein, for all sorts of exclusive content you won't find anywhere else. And if you're interested in my work and what might be going on in the unconscious realms of your particular relationship, go to my website, hollywoodreadings.com. Link is in the show notes, and contact me and let me know that you're interested, and I can give you a little bit more information about how all that works. Okay, guys, see you on the flip side. Bye.